Madam President, we would like to thank the African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Bankole Adeoye, and the Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development in East Africa, Workne Gebeyehu. We also thank the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Volker Perthes, for their briefings. We welcome the participation in our meeting today of the Permanent Representative of Sudan to the UN, Mr. Al-Hadid Idris Mohammed. Russia is deeply concerned by the dangerous developments in Sudan. The outbreak on the 15th of April of armed hostilities between the units of the regular army and the rapid support forces resulted in numerous casualties. A very difficult situation is developing in the humanitarian area. There are growing flows of internally displaced and refugees. Further escalation of the situation could result in the worsening of the security situation in Sudan itself, but it can also destabilize neighboring countries, which themselves are in a very vulnerable situation. Many of them are tackling their own conflicts, are receiving international assistance, and they have peacekeeping and special political missions deployed on their territory. Madam President, in order to effectively react to the current crisis in Sudan, we need to understand its causes and to analyze those steps which led to the current confrontation. It is our view that to a large extent the conflict is a result of mismanagement when it comes to the political settlement in Sudan, and a large degree of responsibility belongs with those Western countries who, for a very long time, thought that they had the right to interfere in the internal affairs of their country. Instead of allowing the political process to be genuinely inter-Sudanese in nature, to be led by the Sudanese themselves, the country was hastily imposed solutions which are not based on the national political culture and which were not accepted by the broad swaths of the population. Unfortunately, the United Nations Integrated Transition Assistance Mission also forced the process of transferring authority to the civilians. And we have stated many a time that insufficient efforts have been made to bring in international financial assistance to stabilize the socio-economic situation in the country, which was very much needed. Quite the contrary took place. The country was deprived of this assistance as a way of punishing it. It was made conditional on artificial timelines and its consent to questionable democratizing formulas. We continue thinking that the Sudanese need to have the full right not just to make decisions as regards the future of the country and the people, but also to be fully responsible for them. Many structural issues of the Sudanese society stem from colonialism and are related to the process of trying to strengthen a unified state. This discussion is beyond the scope of the current crisis and is a long-term goal, but without having such a discussion, it will be difficult to attain sustainable stability in the country. Madam President, we call on the Sudanese parties to display political will and to immediately undertake steps to decisively end the armed confrontation. It is our view that any differences can be settled around a negotiating table, and the Sudanese have sufficient wisdom and political experience to do that. We welcome the regional efforts being made to help Sudan. It is important to allow space and time for them to have consultations with countries in the region and support the steps they undertake. It's important to make sure that the Libyan experience is not repeated here, where an interference with the use of force resulted in a catastrophe for the country and destabilized half of the continent. We think it's a step in the right direction, what was done in Jeddah, the signing of the army leadership and the rapid support forces when they signed the declaration of commitment to protect the civilians and the agreement to have a 7-day humanitarian truce. On our part, Russia and for us, Sudan has always been a friendly country, is maintaining contacts with the Sudanese parties. If there is a need for that, and if there is such a request, we stand ready to assist them, but we are not going to interfere in the internal affairs of the country. The Russian embassy in Khartoum continues functioning despite the serious security threats. At the current stage, it is of critical importance to make sure that all of the mediators work together in unison, regardless of their potential national interests. And we expect that the measures undertaken will create the conditions conducive to stabilizing the situation and to relaunching an inclusive political process in the country. And attempts to influence the situation by force, including through the use of the illegitimate unilateral coercive measures, are counterproductive. As regards the future of UNITAMS, we think that given the current situation on the ground, now is not the time to complicate the parameters of UN assistance. The current mandate could be technically rolled over and the main role given to national and regional efforts. Later on, once the acute phase is over, we can revert to its discussion. What will be of utmost importance will be providing humanitarian assistance to the Sudanese people and neighboring countries who generously opened their borders. I thank you for your attention.